Hey everybody, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are talking about the US versus European model when it comes to cars. So if you've been following some of my trainings and teachings right here on this channel, I've been talking about how post-COVID, the entire United States' car market has turned into a European model car market. So what is the big difference between the two, and what does that really mean? Well, in the US, we are the biggest consumers of luxury and exotic cars globally, which means we buy so much of everything that it all ends up here and it sits. You see, in a conventional way, we bought, for example, 10,000 exotics. This is just a rough example. And as a result of these 10,000, maybe 6,000 were actually allocated. This would be cars that were ordered, people wanted and were willing to pay full purchase price. And then another 4,000 units were basically sitting at dealerships. This means that you could walk into any dealership at any given time and purchase a car at or below MSRP based on how long that car had been sitting here. The reason you could do this is because 4,000 units were ordered to sit on the lots, and in addition to that, the following model year, about 9 months later, 4,000 additional units would more come, and these would be what you called age units. So for example, we're in 22, these are called 21s that would be sitting there. In the past, so many of these units sat that in the end, these units would end up getting discounted, and there was a gap between what you would call the invoice for the car and the MSRP on the car, and that discount was then applied to the majority of people getting a good deal on a car. This is very different than Europe, which did not have these so-called units sitting on the ground. You see, Europeans for a long time are used to ordering their cars. So the big difference is that if there were 10,000 allocated cars in Europe, probably, and this is a pretty big number, but it's pretty close to that, I would say that probably 9,800 of them would basically already be allocated. So the only way you could really order a luxury or exotic car in Europe was to either buy it used or to find a dealer that potentially had one left where a customer had canceled. Very few dealers would get these floor plans to basically put all of these cars in the lot in hopes that customers would run in and buy them. Because the way Europeans worked, you see, for them, exotic cars and luxury cars are just that, luxuries. And they don't have a financial system to afford them, so the volume of cars going on this side is significantly less. So again, big difference between our two numbers, right? We go 10,000 to 6,000, right? And they go 10,000 to 9,800. So this big gap creates a whole different model where basically used cars, being so few and far in between, being available immediately, could technically be worth more than new cars because of the waiting of ordering a car, which is on average 6 months here and also 6 months here. So this difference would create that while in America the 6 months wait was optional, in Europe the 6 months wait was basically mandatory, creating a very different model. You see, in Europe the exotic car model basically would start like this and would hold really strong and would slowly depreciate over time and then start to find its way back up. In the US, however, the model would continuously go down, spread, hold, and eventually go up. The big difference between the two models, if we put these together, would be that again, you see that this gap is occurring until the cars catch up eventually together. But the point I'm trying to make is this mouth it creates here is the difference between the initial depreciation of the US versus European model. What started happening though in the US during the COVID crisis is that these units that went from 10,000 ordered and then 4,000 being left on the ground, the demand increased so significantly that demand basically went 16,000 being allocated because people ordered so much and nothing being left on the ground. And since nothing is left and there's an oversupply of demand, there's an over need of demand and a lower amount of supply, there's only 10,000 cars and 16,000 orders, it means that any orders that are canceled are going to go for over the price of MSRP because someone can now get a car without having to wait. And in many cases, because of this, the 6 month wait turned into an 18-month wait. So the question isn't, is the 6 months worth saving some money, but rather, can you wait 1.5 to 2 years to get a car versus having it now and just paying $50,000 extra? This is what has created the inflation, the hyperinflation market in the United States. But this is something that Europe was very familiar with for a long time. If you actually looked at the release of the Honda S2000 in Europe and how fast that car even with 30 to 60,000 kilometers on the clock, was selling for more than new, you would start to understand that a very similar model has started happening in the United States for exotic and luxury cars, again, because of this increase in demand, this shortage of supply in some cases, and the fact that the demand increase was so significant and the waiting line has gotten so long that the only way to skip that line is to pay the extra, plus 50, plus 100K over, and this gives you the ability to really find a lot of people that are paying massive record numbers on these cars. Right? Wait 18 months, never be able to order one because there's so many people in line. It's just bonkers, right? So this is why the European model, this is how the European model has been for quite some time, but their time frames are just 6 months. Our time frames have gone 18 months because our demand has significantly exceeded their demand. And this is something to understand. While we continue to be a consumer-driven, very, very consumer-driven society that just constantly buys, we're also in a position now where we are positioning ourselves poorly to continue this craziness, because while supply is catching up, there are still major supplies in rarity and exciting luxury goods that is creating this increase to stay there and continue, especially because this increase has a perfect storm. It is around people who have disposable income. Meaning if I pay 50K extra for a car, my life doesn't change, right? But a normal person who's a working class individual who's buying a 30K car pays $2,000 more for the car, and that impacts their day-to-day lives, but it doesn't mind, which is why these numbers are getting astronomical in the exotic car and supercar world. So this is something to just understand in general if you wanted to understand what I kept talking about when I said the US is turning into a European model, and so on and so forth. So if you want to learn more about the economics of cars, how they work, how to actually get in and out of cars without losing any money, click the link in the description into the description of this video, and you'll find my free training on how car hacking works and why it's a significantly better way and financially responsible way to get into cars outside of leasing or purchasing in the conventional manner. And of course, like, subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to see more content like this. And I'll catch you in another video for Exotic Car Hacks.